Hey, we're live. Hey, everybody. Hi, I'm Mike Elson, founder of VoiceLessons.com. Welcome to our Thursday night live show. Today, I have Dr. Matthew Edwards with us again. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, always. It's the best time of the week for us. Today and every week, we go and we answer questions from singers and teachers like you out there. So if you are tuning in, maybe it's your first time, just drop us in your question in the chat. We will check that throughout the show. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our first question today. This question comes in from Divine. They write in, what is the best tip in singing high notes effortlessly? So how do you do that? What do you got for that?
Pardon me there. There's not a singular tip, Divine. And that's one of, when I saw your question, I thought we should talk about this. Excuse me, for sure. I had the hiccups tonight. This should be fun. What I thought, Divine, when I saw you ask this question, is to first of all check and see if you are exercising both what we call the head register and the chest registers. A lot of singers work only in that bottom register, and they're never accessing the lighter part of their voice. So you want to make sure that you're getting that light, breathy quality, exercised every day, going that. Because what that does is that helps elongate your vocal folds, and it teaches your body how to bring them together lightly instead of just firmly like we tend to do when we have just that chest dominant production. And a lot of times if we're out of balance, you're going to struggle to get those high notes. They're going to feel like they take a lot of effort. So that's the first thing, is bringing head voice down. Then you're going to want to start blending it through the middle. We've talked a lot about this on the show, but essentially you want to start doing exercises where you start with your full voice and you fade away to the breathier quality. So an ah. Then you want to start with breathy and go to your full ah. And then be able to do it over an interval, going ah. Excuse me, this hiccups are going to make tonight real fun. Ah, and coming back down. And what that's going to do is start showing you that you can lighten up as you go through that upper passaggio instead of just like plowing through it, which is probably why a good chance that your high notes are feeling like they're taking a lot of effort. Now, the other thing that you want to look at too is your vocal tract, everything above your vocal folds. So is your jaw clenching? If it is, you want to get in here and make sure that you're massaging the muscle. Helps clamp down in your jaw, so that way it's not getting in your way. Because when this muscle tightens, these muscles underneath your chin are going to fight back. And when they start fighting back, they connect to the larynx, and you could find yourself getting a lot of tension that you don't need. You also want to check in with your alignment. In general, we want our head balancing on what's called the AO joint. It's the little joint that goes into the base of our skull. It connects right there. And it's right here in between your ears. So you want to imagine if you had both fingers pointing at your ears, where's the middle point? And make sure the weight of your head is balanced on that point and you're capable of moving it. A lot of times if you get it way out of whack, you're leaning forward or you're slouching or something like that, your larynx gets in a weird position and it's not going to be able to tilt the way that it needs to change pitch, and it will make your high notes too hard to sing. And then finally, you want to make sure, are you taking enough breath to sing what you need to do, or are you taking too much breath? You might want to see if you're clenching your abs and really pulling your abs in to sing those high notes. That actually could get in the way. So you might want to try relaxing your abdominal wall. And if you've only been relaxing your abdominal wall, you might want to try tensing your abdominal wall to see if that helps you get up there. So I would look at those different systems and see if you can zone in on what it seems to be. And then if you want to shoot us a message, we can, tell you a couple things to look for in the archives.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you mentioned the falsetto and the cricothyroid, right, for stretching the vocal cords. So a lot of the times don't try and shove a lot of air up there, because yes, you can try and force it, but you don't want to force it. So effortlessly, like what Matt's talking about, is actually stretching the cords and then balancing the ratio of that registration so that you can get the note. And I would say my little tip for you is, can you sing the phrase that has the high note that you're trying to sing using a lip trill, or just hum it with your mouth closed? And chances are, if you can't, then you have too much air coming through and it's not the right size registration. So that would be the little check I'd give you guys on that. And let's jump into our next question. This one comes in from Abraham, who writes in, what do I need to do to avoid constant cracked voice?
All right, great question. So what's happening when the voice cracks is that we have two muscles inside the larynx. I'll pull up the larynx model here. So now we have a muscle that helps pull the vocal folds along. This one on the front called the cricothyroid muscle. And when it pulls, it elongates the vocal folds on the inside, which is the thyroarytenoid muscle. And inside of that thyroarytenoid muscle is a ligament. And what happens is, if I'm pulling one arm this way and then I do this, or if you hold a friend's hands and you both try to lean back, you have to try to balance out how far one person's leaning back, how far the other person is, who's giving a little more, who's taking a little more. You got to work that out. When you're going up in your range, those two muscles I just showed you are, playing that same game. The thyroarytenoid muscle and the cricothyroid muscle are working together, and they're trying to figure out who's supposed to go first, who's supposed to lead the way. And at a certain point, as you go up higher in your range, that muscle has gotten to put so much tension on it when it's inside of your vocal fold that it's going to start to let go, and the ligament that runs through the muscle is going to start to take over. And when you make that transition, if you don't do it smoothly, you're going to get a crack. Excuse me. That's a hiccup, not a crack. But you're going to get a crack, and it's going to sound a little bit like that, as you go up through your voice. So what you want to do is make sure that you are working around that break from both the top down and the bottom up, and to do it with glides. And so first, just start gliding down and just kind of try to figure out about where it breaks. Woo! Or ah! And listen for that spot. Once you know where that is, see if you can delay it. Can you get it to be delayed longer before it flips? Ah! Right? How far low can you get it? Ah! Ah! Right? Then you'll do the same going bottom up. Going, ah, see where it flips. Then what I want you to do is on the way up, when you think that flip is about to come, I want you to start feeling like you exhale more air. You go, ah, excuse me. See if you can get through to the other side. This is going to be like for the comedy reel of this live series. Sorry, y'all.
Well, hiccup's contagious. I'm just wondering if our audience out there is going to catch these.
I don't know. I mean, we were sitting, I took a drink of water before we started, and this is what I get for
That's good.
staying hydrated.
We're not laughing at you, Dr. Edwards.
So my wife probably is. She's watching. So what we're going to do is then have the, Jan, he's laughing. So we're going to bring then the head down, and we're going to see if we can do the same thing, except this time we're going to have a lot of exhale in it. And then after we start feeling like we're probably past that breaking point, we want to start bringing more of our full voice in. Ah. So taking it up and adding air. Ah. And then starting with air and then adding the full voice. Ah. Excuse me. Ah, with the hiccup in the middle of it. So, but that's what you want to do, is be weaving in and out. And what's happening in that moment is you're coordinating all the muscles that are inside of your larynx. And as those muscles get more coordinated, they should make it easier for you to get through that break in your full voice going up and in a lighter voice coming down. And then if you go back, Abraham, to what I was just talking about with Divine, about doing those fades where you start breathy and go to full, and start full and go to breathy, those exercises are also going to start to help you navigate through the muscular coordination necessary to smoothly transition between those two qualities. Other things to look out for: make sure you're not trying to sing too loud. A lot of times what makes you crack is you're just trying to like scream through the thing, and you need to back off the volume, let the mic do the work. Or if you're a classical singer, just realize that volume comes with age and continue training. You want to make sure your larynx isn't getting way shot up, that you're not like trying to sing here and going, hey, that's good. Be really tough to transition out of. We want it to be more in a neutral spot, whatever your neutral speaking place is. We don't want it depressed, right? If it starts getting depressed, it's also going to get in the way of you getting through your break. You want to make sure your head is balanced, not too much air pressure, and make sure you are, though, breathing enough air to make sure that you have power for your voice. But start there, see if that helps. And if not, come back and shoot us another question with what exactly is going on, or shoot us a video example, and we'll see what we can do to help.
Yeah, my question for you, Abraham, just can you do a 12 tone with a lip trill and kind of go up a few pitches? And is it still cracked then? Usually when you're using that lip trill there, it's going to, help you have a smaller vibrating mass so you can maybe start to get your voice to go a little higher and not crack. So I would just question that. And don't worry, you're not alone. I was a cracker at one point.
Oh, me too.
Definitely had some cracks. So don't worry. They are embarrassing when you do them in public, but don't worry, it happens. So let's go to the next one here. This question comes in from Darren. How can singers achieve a more stable larynx position, especially when the larynx rises and the throat gets tight? So yeah, laryngeal stabilization. How do you go about maybe getting into that?
Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is put your fingers on, and this for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, is put your fingers on where your laryngeal prominence is, the little bump that sticks out in your neck. And what I want you to do is swallow. When you swallow, you're going to notice that it goes up and then it pops down and then it restabilizes in the middle. So the larynx moves to help us get food down our esophagus. Now, when we make sound, it will also move. So what I want you to now do is do a glide from your lowest note to your highest note. Don't try to change the tone quality of your voice. Just let it change as it goes up. Don't try to maintain the quality of your voice, but rather let it change as it goes up. So going, you should notice that when you're in that lower part, it's not in a nice, relaxed, neutral spot. And then when you go up high, it glides up. That's what the larynx wants to do naturally. It wants to rise with pitch. Okay? And so what we need to do if that's getting in the way is start to coordinate our body to let it stick in more of a neutral speech-like position. And that is a little bit difficult, and there's a reason. There are 7 muscles that help pull your larynx up, and there's only 3 that help pull it down. And so you are really definitely outnumbered with laryngeal elevators compared to laryngeal depressors. Why do we have so many that elevate it instead of depressing it? Well, depressing it's for singing. Elevating is for things like swallowing. And so swallowing is a little more important to our survival, so we have more muscles that help with that than we do with, the singing part of it. So the first thing you want to do, Darren, is start training your body to hold your larynx in a lower position. Now, we don't want this to become your, habitual default that you can't ever get out of. Okay. But we want to use this as a way to teach your body what the opposite is of what it is trying to do. So I want you to imagine that you're sipping a string of spaghetti. So I want you to go, and as you do that, you should feel that your larynx drops down. So do that. And then sing on ooh. Ooh. Excuse me. One of the things you're trying to do in that moment is you're trying to maintain the timbre of your voice. Now, the other way that we can get that larynx down is to do what my friend Brian Gill calls the resistance breath. You're going to tap your lips as you breathe in, going. The suction is going to help lower that larynx. And then when you're taking your breath in, you're going to sing the ooh from there. Ooh, ooh. So you're going to work that up and down throughout your range. Yeah, it's going to get way too hooty. Ooh. Not something we want to put out in public. But if that's where the problem is, what this exercise is doing is teaching your brain that there is another option. And while that other option is extreme, there's a whole lot of other options in between those two. And that's what we want to eventually get our body to have the freedom to do. So after we've gotten your larynx used to being low, we now want to help it find what's in the middle. And the way we're going to help it find what's in the middle is by doing the lower larynx sound, a higher larynx sound, and then we're going to try to split the difference. Okay? So we're going to start with that sip in the spaghetti place, that ooh, ooh. Then we're going to go to a high larynx place. Yeah, 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 yeah. Then we're going to go to a neutral place just like we speak. So say blah, 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 blah. Now I want you to feel like you can move up and down without changing that sound. Blah, 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 blah. That's a neutral position. It's a position where it doesn't change the tone quality of your voice, even if your voice is going up or it's going down. So in that spot, we now sing blah, 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 blah. So the whole series is ooh, ooh, yeah, 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 blah, 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 blah. And then we keep taking that up. So when we get it to the upper range, ooh, yeah, 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 blah, 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 blah. Making sure that we have all of those options available to us. What you're going to start to realize is that when the larynx is high, you get brighter vowel qualities. And when the larynx is low, you get real hooty qualities. So you can then, once your body has connected those two things, you can reverse the order of getting the action to occur. So instead of trying to depress the larynx to get a hooty sound, you're going to start making a hooty sound, which will then get your body to drop your larynx. You will then make a bratty kid sound, that na 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 sound, which will get your body to let the larynx go up. And you'll do that blah, blah, blah sound, which will get your larynx to just hang out in the middle, right? So we encourage the movement first to discover the sound, but then we want to switch our brain over so that our brain starts associating the sound with the movement pattern. And that happens automatically when we try to go for a certain sound quality. Okay? When you do that and you're exercising through, you should start to find some variations. And the variations are then going to help you start to figure out what kind of quality you want. Now, there's a couple of other things to look for. If your chin is jutted up and forward, that's going to pull your larynx up. So make sure your head is balanced like we've talked about here earlier in the show today. You're going to want to make sure that you're not taking a really high breath. If you're going, and you're heaving your chest when you breathe, that's going to encourage your larynx to raise up. Instead, you want to feel like your lower ribs, the bottom two ribs, are where the expansion really occurs. And you feel that when you breathe in, everything expands. And then as you start using air, it slowly comes back in. That should engage what we call laryngeal pull. And so that's what's going to happen when tracheal pull. Tracheal pull is what happens when your diaphragm, which is attached to your lungs, which is attached to the trachea, which is attached to the larynx, goes down, because as the diaphragm goes down, it takes the lungs with it, the trachea with it, and the larynx with it as well. So you're also going to want to see if your breathing is getting in the way. And one other thing that you want to do is really look at your registration. If you're carrying up too much chest, what happens is when you're going into the upper part of your range, if your vocal folds are staying too firmly closed together and all that air pressure builds up underneath, that air pressure is going to try to drive your larynx up. And so if you feel that happening, try to mix a little bit of that breathiness into it, a little bit of that head quality into it, and see if that doesn't get your larynx to drop down. Sarah asked a good question while we're talking about here, how to do this with a straw. Let me grab some straws. Got one over here.
Thanks for being with us today, and let's jump into this question. You got a straw, Matt?
Yeah, I do. I just grabbed some here. All right, Sarah. So the whole idea with straws is that they essentially help limit the way the air flows through your vocal tract, and what that ends up doing is sending a reverse cycle of air back towards our vocal folds. So here's your vocal tract. Excuse me. Sound comes up from those vocal folds, and then it comes out through your mouth. And usually we open up our mouth, and then the air just goes out. When you put a straw in it like that, all of a sudden the airflow meets a resistance. And what happens is that resistance sends air backwards. And we have video where we've stuck a camera, or not we, me is the we, but the scientific community has stuck cameras in the noses of singers, right? So if we stick one of these right inside of the nose, you're going to see that we can get it right in there. And as we get it in there, we can bend it back to get a camera angle.
This tickles, and they have to use the you know.
But once they get it back there, they're able to look straight down at your vocal folds. Okay. Yep. And when they do that in this research, what they've seen is that as soon as you put the straw in between somebody's lips, that space above the vocal folds opens right up, and the vocal folds get pushed apart a little bit from the top. Because that air pressure that's coming back and air pressure coming up from the bottom, they meet in the vocal folds part way a little bit, which is going to put you in a better place to mix. Now, straw size varies. There's some new research that's going to be published soon about that, where they're really trying to codify what sizes are going to be best for what activities. In general, we tend to find smaller sizes do seem to help people mix, but what size small is going to depend on the length of your vocal tract, the natural size of your vocal tract.
One second, Matt. When you mentioned that the airflow creates some back pressure and the cords come apart, so basically the lateral cricoarytenoid doesn't have to press as hard.
Yeah.
So let go of some of that pressure. You can use the straw to help vary some of the muscular coordination inside.
Yeah. So the interarytenoids and the LCA, they all then start to lighten their grip a little bit, which again helps us get into mix. That's a good point.
Okay.
So then what you're going to do with these is you're going to start singing with your full voice. Now, the biggest mistake that people make with straw phonation is they allow the sound to be bright. So they'll do, and when you're doing that, your larynx is coming up and the straw is not helping you. Instead, you want to turn up the bass of your sound or the mids of your sound and get a warmer, hootier ooh. As you're singing through. Then you're going to start gliding with that warm sound. Why we want that warm sound is because that warm sound indicates that everything's opening up in the back. All right. Our sound gets warmer with openness. So when we're done, we know the straw is not really doing what it's supposed to do. Because if it was, it would be a warm sound. So when I get that warmer sound, I'm going to glide. You hear it's going pretty smooth. Okay. We can take a bigger straw, a regular drinking straw, and do the same. There's a hiccup in there too. Sorry about that. But as you heard, this one wasn't as good at breaking up my break. We hear it a little bit. But the smaller ones that give me more resistance actually help a little more. Right? So everyone's going to be different. And you're going to have to find which one works best for you. But you're going to do the same ideas of gliding from the bottom up, gliding from the top down, Sarah. And as you're doing that, it should get those vocal folds in a better spot. And then the key is to do one with the straw. So then do it without. And see if you can maintain this same mix going up. So go experiment with that a little bit. And if you're still getting stuck with it, let us know. I think we have some videos in the archives. And if not, I can also refer you to a YouTube video from the guy who made it famous, a good friend of mine, Dr. Ingo Titsa. He's the one who made straw phonation famous. And there's some videos of him explaining it that could also help you out as well.
Awesome, Sarah. Hopefully that helps you. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to jump back into our regular scheduled program here. Let's go to our next question here from Phoenix. Right in order to sing clearly, what should I do to learn that?
So what I'm going to start with this is to start singing like you speak. Because Phoenix, I'm not 100% sure what you're talking about. Excuse me. So normally what we want to do to get clarity is get the voice to be as close to the speaking voice as possible. So if I were to say, Mary had a little lamb, Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Now, if my voice is naturally clear, then I should be able to find a clear singing voice. Now, if I got a voice that's a little more husky like that, then it's possible that I got something inside on my vocal folds themselves that's causing this raspiness. You'll hear it in people who smoke. You'll hear it in people who used to yell a lot and like an athletic activity or some job that they had. And what that roughness can indicate is some sort of damage to the surface of the vocal folds. And that will add a roughness, and it's going to make it hard for your voice to get clear. So if you feel like your speaking voice already has like a roughness to it or hoarseness, I would suggest trying to seek out a board-certified laryngologist. These are people who specialize in the speaking voice, and they can do some tests and exams to see exactly what's going on in your vocal folds and start doing medical treatments, usually voice therapy. It's like voice lessons that your insurance pays for. And so you want to get some voice therapy to start resetting your speaking voice so you can then do what I'm talking about. So then the next step with the speech, once it's clear, is just to speak the words, Mary had a little lamb. Then you want to start trying to speak them as if you're talking to somebody a little further away. Mary had a little lamb. And see how far you can go at trying to call out to somebody. Mary had a little lamb. Now, excuse me, we don't want to go up to that point right away if they're singing, but now we've established how far we could go. Now, we're going to try to get softer. Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Right? So that's how soft I can get. So I have everything from Mary had a little lamb to Mary had a little lamb to Mary had a little lamb to Mary had a little lamb. And that's got a clarity inside of it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to roughly modulate the quality of my voice just, into approximations of pitch. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. And I'm just going to get that moving up and down, up and down, up and down. That's teaching my brain to maintain speech quality over a wider pitch range. The next step is to get my brain to start trying to hit closer to exact pitches. So doing the melodic contour of whatever song I decide to work on. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. Excuse me. As you see, I'm going up and down. I'm approximating all those pitches. That's going to, again, get my brain starting to think more musically. Then the next step is just to land on the exact pitch, but don't try to control the sound. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Not trying to be musical at all, just trying to get it out. When you can get it out consistently, then you want to start trying to make it a little more musical. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. You riff, do whatever you want with it. But that process start there, Phoenix. And then if you still feel like the clarity is not always there, it's not that your voice is always rough, but when you get some of the speaking voice, it seems to fatigue quickly, or you have a hard time getting it to call out louder, that could be an indication that you need to strengthen your chest register. That's the term that we have traditionally used to describe the process of strengthening the muscles that close the vocal folds. And so I'd want you to start looking at if you needed to do some of that work. And, we talked about that earlier in this show. You can look it up. It's in our archives as well, talking about registration, because as you improve the balance of your registration, you should get some clarity coming into your voice. And then once we know the vocal folds are in the right vibrational pattern, anything else that would be getting in the way of the clarity would be happening between the vocal folds and the lips, what we call the vocal tract. And then we could start looking at like your laryngeal position, your soft palate position, the back of your tongue, the middle of your tongue, the front of your tongue, your jaw, and your lips, right? Those are the only things we really can, control, and that tend to get in the way when we sit. But my guess is if you start with speech, you should be able to find a little extra clarity pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, Phoenix, you can take a look at our course that Matt put together called howthevoiceworks.com, and you can learn a lot more. Matt, why don't you fill him in on what's inside this course?
Yeah. So Mike asked me several years ago to do this, and we filmed it last year out in LA. It was, shot out in Hollywood at a great production team. It's beautiful footage, and it's a 4-hour online course, self-paced, and you get to go through and learn exactly how the body works. So if some of these terms are new to you, you don't know what I'm talking about, this course is for you. Now, there's a lot of singers out there who have vocal problems. They have vocal challenges, and they've been out there looking on YouTube trying to find the answer. They've been reading blog articles trying to find the answer, and they're finding that even though they see these people who everyone says are brilliant teachers, they're still not getting the results they want, and that becomes a problem for them. This course is for those people. This course is for anyone who's felt stuck and is feeling like, I still don't know why that exercise doesn't work for me. Well, the reason you don't know is because you don't understand how the voice works. And once you do understand how the voice works, you're going to be able to see an exercise on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Snap, and be able to analyze and go, oh, that exercise is getting my larynx to bounce around a little bit. And that's one of the things I have a problem with. I'm going to add that to my exercise regimen. Or you'll look at another one and realize, oh, that's to help get the soft palate up. And mine likes to droop down a little bit on the high notes. So I'm going to use that to help train my soft palate to get it to stay up. Okay. And so in this course, you're also going to get a 114-page workbook. It's a full color workbook full of extra activities you can do. I've got MRI videos in there to give you x-ray vision of what's happening in your vocal tract. We have stroboscopy videos in there, so you get to actually see the vocal folds as they go through register breaks and they go through different songs. There's listening in there, guided listening, where I walk you through some different tracks and show you exactly what the different artists are doing, so you can really tune your ears to be able to see what head voice actually is in a performance aspect, not just an exercise, and in the chest voice as well. And then there's over 100 exercise combinations that are available as well. So if you don't already have a teacher, you can be working through it. Now, when we put this course together, we wanted to make sure it was something that would help lots of people. And so if you're brand new to singing, I am, a big fan of learning how your voice works from the beginning. So, you have problems. You may be just starting to seek out that information, and you're probably going to end up finding out that you end up with a lot of frustration along the way. You're going to keep reaching these barriers, these roadblocks, because a lot of that content on YouTube is teaser content. It's teaser content to get you to keep subscribing and coming back. Well, the course is different because it's not going to tease you on anything. It's going to flat out tell you how everything goes, and it's going to teach you a systematic approach to start thinking about things in terms of vocal development. Then once you understand how that works, then when you go back onto YouTube, TikTok, Snap, and you start seeing these teaser videos, you're going to actually get a lot out of them, because you're going to be able to, like I said earlier, pick that up and go, oh, that will help with this thing here. All right. And so, I'm very proud of the course, and it's at a unbelievable price right now of $47. And so that sale price is not going to reach long. We're about at our cap of where we had previously said we were going to cut off that special discount price and take it back up to $99. So, if you want to check it out, jump on over there to howthevoiceworks.com, and 30-day, no risk, money back guarantee. And, if it doesn't do what you need it to do for you, completely understand. Everyone learns differently, no hard feelings, but I think it could help you out a lot, and I'd love if you want to check it out.
Absolutely. And we've had so many great testimonials. I don't have any to drop up here, but let me grab some for another time. But so many people love that course, Matt. They just keep telling us wonderful, wonderful things. So happy to have worked on that and get that out there for more people to see. So I think I have one more question, and then we'll check the chat again. So this one comes in from Audrey. This was a little juicy, but I thought, hey, let's do it. So how do you know when it's time to switch teachers? This comes in from Audrey. So Audrey, everyone's going to vary, but I'm really, Matt, what do you have? Is there like a 3-point checklist, or how do you know?
Yeah, so there's nothing clean cut. But what I thought when I saw this, and I said, yeah, let's go ahead and take this question on today. I want to start off with, let's not make it a big dramatic thing. Right? I know when I was young, switching voice teachers was like the drama of your school music department. Everybody would be talking, oh, so-and-so's trying to switch studios. And everybody was like, oh, what's that about? Why? Right? Everyone learns differently. Everyone has different personalities. Sometimes you can have the greatest teacher in the world for one person who doesn't work for another. Right? Like I had, when I was in grad school, my wife had one teacher. I had another. My teacher had a bunch of people winning the Metropolitan Opera competition on a regular basis, which is why everybody wanted to work with him. Several of the students I went to school with are now, one's an operatic superstar. The others are singing at the Met on a constant basis. Him and I were not a good fit. It was not the right person for me. My wife's teacher was actually the better person for me. And she was somebody who specialized in body work and things that I didn't even know I needed until I started working with her. And her nurturing of what I was doing and her encouraging me of letting go and finding freedom was exactly the approach I needed. Now, everybody would have thought I was crazy had I tried to switch. I switched after I graduated. I started taking lessons privately, but everyone, in part because I knew everybody would lose their mind and they'd freak out about it. And as a voice teacher now, I realize how silly that is. I have students that I work with, in my job that every once in a while I'll look at and I'll be like, I think this other person might be a better fit for you. And when they get ready to graduate, I'm like, these teachers I think would work for you. And I have different teachers that I recommend, right? Because some of us process things kinesthetically. We really feel stuff, and we need a teacher who's going to help us feel things. All right. Other people experience their voice very much in the physical body, the whole entire body. And so a teacher with yoga training, Pilates training, or dance training who's getting you physically moving to unlock your voice might be exactly what you need. You might have somebody like me that just needs to know how it works. And once you tell me what it does and how it works, I can make any sound I want. I needed a certain kind of teacher who was going to show me that. You might find somebody that you tell them anything technical and it goes right over their head. They zone out and it doesn't work. So you might need a teacher who's really good at bringing artistry into the mix and using artistry to fix technical faults or vocal faults. There's so many variations out there, right? So the way that you know if it's time for you to switch is if you feel like you're not making the same kind of progress that you used to. But what I would like to say is that before you just jump ship, talk to your teacher, right? And all you have to say, the easiest way to start is to walk in and say, hey, I was listening to a recording as I was practicing, and I noticed blank. I don't feel like we've talked about that in the past couple of weeks. Could we maybe try to work with that? And you might be surprised. Your teacher may be like, oh, yeah, you're right. You are doing that. I've been so focused on your acting and your musicality. I guess I just didn't obsess about it because it didn't seem to be a problem. But you're right. I do hear that. So yeah, let's do some exercises. And guess what? Now, I've switched teachers. You just had to ask, right? And so many people are afraid to ask. They feel like it's insulting. Well, if you tell the teacher, hey, I was practicing, they're going to be happy. I discovered blank. They'll be like, oh, you're starting to pay attention. And then I would love this. Oh, I'm the expert that you came to get help from. When, right? So try that first. Now, I've had students I've told to do this before, and I had a teacher a long time ago that was at the same institution I am who'd say, well, I just don't know what to tell you then. That's a sign it's time to switch studios. When the teacher's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why it works. You just need to keep trying. That's not an answer. That is, I only know how to do it one way, and I'm not willing to change, and I'm not willing to adapt my approach for you. And that's not a good teacher for you, right? So in that instance, you probably do want to move on. Now, let's say you've been with somebody for 2-3 years, and you're starting to think that you would just like to mix things up a little bit. That's also a good reason to switch, and it shouldn't be dramatic. It should just be one of those things where it's like, hey, I've loved working with you for a couple of years. I kind of want to explore some different things. And there's this jazz teacher I really want to work with who specializes in that and doing scat and whatever it is. And I want to give them a tryout and kind of play with some different sounds. Most teachers should be fine with that because they've got a waiting list and they'll just bring the other person up. And a lot of times a student will do that, go play, and then they'll come back, right? So again, it shouldn't be a big dramatic thing. I think the bigger red flag reasons to switch, we can definitely go through. The first is abuse. So if you have a teacher who is like, well, I don't know why you can't do that, and I just don't know what else to tell you, that's pushing some verbal abuse limits. Not cool. Time to switch, and you don't really need an explanation for that. You don't deserve to be treated that way. There's a teacher in New York who's famous for throwing things at students. And I probably, if that would have ever happened, would have thrown it back in my younger days. Today, I would just walk out. But I would say for legal reasons, do not throw anything back. Pick up your stuff. Get out in that moment. You should never have a chair thrown across the room at you because you didn't do something. Pick your stuff up. Get out. That person is not worth the time of day. Okay? They should be barred from teaching. We had a way to bar them from teaching. They should be. You don't want somebody who's pushing your voice to the limits to where it hurts, okay? I had a voice lesson once with somebody I admired so much. I'd heard this person sing, and I thought they were one of the greatest singers that I had heard, and I wanted to work with them. And so they were telling me to feel like I was throwing up and clenching everything in the lower half of my body to get the sound up and out. I was hoarse in 20 minutes. And I said to them, this really hurts. And he's like, I don't understand why. And I was like, I don't either. I'm trying to throw up. And he's like, well, you're not throwing up enough. And so I went back again. I tried to throw up better in the next one. The same thing. He's like, well, I just don't know. You're just going to have to keep doing it. You should stop hurting in a couple weeks. No, that was the end of those lessons, right? It should stop hurting in a couple weeks. That's not an answer.
It should never hurt.
I don't know what else to do with this. Now, you got to understand that hurt versus workout are different things, right? Hurting is when it feels like, right? Or veins are popping out or it's getting real raspy on you. Feeling like you've never engaged your vocal folds before and your teacher says, I want you to go, ah, and you're like, oh, but I feel things. That's because you never have engaged your vocal folds before. And yes, you feel things. You feel vibrations you've never felt before.
It's going to buzz a little bit.
You've never felt before. That feeling, that's okay. That's just you doing some work with a muscle that's never been used in that way before. All right. So it's different from like feeling like you're lifting a heavy weight versus just engaging your vocal folds in a new way. Okay. So that's another thing that we can keep an eye out for to gauge whether it's actual pain and discomfort or if it's just, effort. And if there's ever a teacher that you have who's saying, well, this is the only way to do it and this is the only right way and everybody needs to learn to do this first before they can learn to do the other thing, that's just not true. Right? There's not a single way that everybody has to do everything. You're all individuals. Everybody starts a different place. Now, a teacher might say, hey, I like to cover all of these things because I think they're helpful and it'll make all of our work together go a little bit better. And then that sounds like a pedagogically sound idea of I've thought this through and I realize if I show you these things in the beginning, it's going to help you through the end. Cool. That sounds good. Okay. And then the other thing is that if the teacher's not willing to work with you on your style, so let's say that you're a singer-songwriter and you want to go get voice lessons and the teacher you're working with says, well, you need to begin with classical singing first because classical singing is the foundation of all good singing. That's not true. There are plenty of scientific research papers that show you that actually what happens at the vocal fold level with the respiratory system and with the resonance, which is the vocal tract, varies in some places quite drastically between classical singing and non-classical singing styles. We also have research that shows us that singing is a motor skill, and we have research that tells us how motor skill development works. And we know that motor skill development eventually gets into what's called the automatic phase. The automatic phase is where your brain just knows how to do something. And when you hit that phase, it can be a good thing because it helps you keep doing the thing without thinking, or it can be a bad thing if you learn the wrong skill. because then you have to unlearn it. And that process is really hard. So telling the student who wants to sing rock and roll that they need to learn to sing classically first is going to train them to have dark vowels. And if you get those dark, pure vowels in the automatic phase, you are going to have a hard time ever getting back to singing rock and roll. I know, because I help hundreds of teachers all the time, every year, through workshops, through private lessons, through all kinds of things I go out and do, who say, well, I was in a rock band, then I learned to sing classically, and now I can't find my rock band sound again, or my music theater, or my jazz, or my country, or my whatever. It's a chronic problem, okay? And once they understand it's because you trained a motor skill that's now automatic and your brain doesn't want to let it go, they realize what the problem is. But what we then have to do is deconstruct everything from what they've been trained to do and then rebuild up their instrument in a whole new way, which means that other stuff ended up being wasted time. It was training the voice to do stuff that you didn't actually want it to do, and now we got to retrain it all, right? So you want to find a teacher who says, oh, you write your own songs. Cool, let me hear what you're doing. Show them what you're doing, and they go, okay, cool. So what do you want help with again? And then they tell them, and then they're your guide. They go, oh, that's the kind of sound you want. Well, let me guide you through some exercises that will help you make that sound without as much effort. Or let me guide you through some exercises that will help improve those high notes the way that you're saying that you want to. Or let me guide you through some artistic exploration that will help you find some new vocal qualities to use in your songwriting. And along the way, they might be like, hey, artistically, you really struggle to sing legato. What if we just sing this song that's a vocalese that's all on different vowels as a way to help you start to experiment with that? And if you look at that and go, yeah, this makes a lot of sense because I do have that problem and I kind of like that song, then great. But you're working on it for a pedagogical purpose. All right. The whole idea that classical is the basis of all good singing goes all the way back to the 19th century. It was all about classism, elitism. It was about the upper class in England at the time trying to get rid of what they considered lower class speech patterns in the children of factory workers and iron workers and whatnot. That carried over into the United States in big cities like New York City. And they, in fact, instead of calling it voice pedagogy, back in the day, they used to call it voice culture. And because the idea is that when you improved your voice, you would sound more cultured. You would be more upper class, and that would be better for you. And we just know today that's not true. So, that idea, that's where it got started. It got started back in the 19-teens, 1920s. Today, we know it's not true. So you want to definitely find somebody who's going to work with you on your style of singing and help you. And if they're not, then that's probably a sign that you might want to find another teacher as well. So, like I said at the top of this, try to talk to your teacher first and be like, hey, I'm noticing this in a practice session. Do you hear that too? Or what can we do about that? And keep taking questions back. The other thing is if you're practicing and it looks like, it's hurting your voice in a certain spot, can you then go in and say, hey, when I was practicing, this hurts a little bit. Can you tell me more about that? And then have them give you some information about what that is, right? Because most teachers I know, they like it when you come back with your practice notes and say, hey, this is what I discovered in practice. How can you help me? So, definitely try to take that approach first. All right. And
awesome. So we got another question. Audrey, hopefully that answers your question. I just saw another one pop into the chat, Matt. So looks like Sarah has a follow-up question. Sarah writes in, how can you reduce the amount of air in the voice? When I sing, there's excess air in the tone.
Yeah.
So, sounds like the, chest voice, right? So I'm curious what you think.
So one of the first things we want to do is awaken the muscles that help close your vocal folds together so that you don't have that breathy sound. Okay, so we talked earlier about the cricothyroid muscle here and the thyroarytenoid muscle that runs inside of the vocal.
And the cricothyroid, again, in that model, will you show what it does when it stretches?
Yeah, when it contracts, it tilts the larynx, the upper part of the larynx, which is called the thyroid cartilage. Okay. And as that tilts, it elongates the vocal cords.
Stretches the vocal cords. Okay, and then what do the arytenoids do on that one?
So the arytenoids are these guys that help swing the vocal folds open for you to inhale, and they swing them closed for you to phonate, to make sound. They have a muscle in the back called the inner arytenoid muscle that helps do that, and a muscle off to the side called the lateral cricoarytenoid muscle that helps bring them together. And then this muscle is the posterior cricoarytenoid muscle, and it helps open them up. So what you're trying to do is get all three of those muscles to coordinate so that you can get the vocal folds to close up and by engaging that muscular activity. So the first thing to do is staccati. Just do staccati in the lower part of your voice, because in the lower part of your voice, it's going to really awaken those muscles. Okay,
So middle
if
C
you
or below or A.
so if you're an estrogen dominant singing voice, you're going to want to go to the B or A below middle C. Okay, if you're a testosterone dominant singer, you're going to want to go down into an octave below that. So I would be down here. Ah, my wife would be up here. Ah, okay. So depending on the hormone dominance that you have, that's going to affect your vocal folds. We've talked about that before. It's the best way to kind of think about voice outside of gender is what influence the hormones have on vocal function. So you're going to get into that lower part of your voice and just do staccati. Ha, 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 ha. Because what staccati do is it engages that lateral cricothyroid muscle and arytenoid muscle to bounce the vocal folds together. It's going to awaken those muscles and coordinate that movement pattern. You're just going to do it on single pitches, up and down. Okay. Then what you're going to do is try to take that activation of those muscles and then put it onto a single pitch in a firm closure vibrational mode, what we would traditionally call chest voice. So that would be ha, 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 and you're going to hold it as long as comfortable. Okay? You're going to just do that on single pitches. To start, for the first couple days, just stick around a 5-6 note pattern, right? With half steps, I guess you could go up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, so an estrogen dominant singer may be going up to the E above middle C. Testosterone dominant singer may be going up to the A below middle C. Just to start, because in that range, you're not going to hurt yourself. Right, you're not putting too much stress. Your body is designed to be able to do that. All voices are designed to be able to carry their chest voice up to at least the E above middle C, oftentimes the F or the F sharp. And then when we get learning how to have like a high tenor sound, a belty tenor sound, a baritone sound, or a belty baritone, or a regular belter, estrogen dominant belter sound, all of those qualities are created by carrying chest voice up above that F sharp. And that's a more advanced technique though. So you've done this work, let's say, for a couple days, and you're starting to be able to really isolate that hey sound. Now, if you're still struggling with it, you might want to practice calling, going, hey, 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 ah. Use calling as a way to get there, or you could use ack as a way to get there. Ack has got a hard glottal. It's a lot like the staccati. I like staccati better, but this will do the same thing. Ack, 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 to get those vocal folds to come together. Now, it may take a couple weeks. If after a couple weeks you're still struggling, then that might be a sign you want to just double check in on your vocal health with a laryngologist. Make sure you've got a clean bill of health. You might have acid reflux and don't even know it, because acid reflux will give you a breathy voice. It's an easy solution to fix with the acid reflux. You just need to know it's a problem, because often with singers, we consider it silent reflux. You don't even know you have it, but it's causing your vocal folds to dry out. So that's where a doctor can help you. But let's assume that these exercises work. You're getting everything you want. We're then going to start to move that solid sound over glides, going with ah, ah. Then we're going to start to expand it to thirds. Ah, and then fourths. Ah, then fifths. Ah. What that's doing is training your body how to keep vocal fold closure into the upper part of your range and moving it across different pitches. Once you start to master that, then you're going to want to go into the registration changing exercises we've been talking about. So I'm assuming you already have a head voice. You're talking about having breathiness and airiness in there. So you want to make sure you are practicing. Ah! We want to keep the ability to let more air through. Essentially, what this is doing is it's teaching your voice that on one end of the spectrum, I have really closed vocal folds, and on the other end of the spectrum, I have lightly closed vocal folds. Then the next exercise is going to teach your body that everything in between is possible. So to do that, we're going to start with a full sound, and we're going to back off to breathy. Ah. Then we're going to start breathy and go back to full. And that starts showing us what all the options are. Then we can start stopping somewhere along the middle and then doing a little pattern. Or the other way. Finding anywhere along the spectrum to stop, pause, sing a little pattern, and start training your body. That's an option as well. If you do that work over, several weeks, several months, you're going to start to find a lot of different options. And then as those options start to surface, then you can go back and watch some of our previous Q&As and some of the other stuff we talked about, like using straws, etc., to start managing that break, teaching your body how to get through it. And then as you start getting through that break, you'll start doing these exercises above the break as well as below the break. And then you're going to end up having full control over your instrument to make any sound that you want.
Awesome. Awesome. Sarah, hopefully that helps you. If you have any more questions, drop them in. We'll try and come back.
And I'll pop those references in when we get off this chat tonight. I'll pop you in the links.
So we got those references. We'll include those in. And gosh, guys, it's been almost an hour.
Wow.
We went late. It's so funny. When we started the show today, I thought I did not press the go live button. So sorry we were minutes late there.
And then the hiccups showed up, and now they're gone. So
yes, Shannon, we are laughing at Matt. I'm sorry, Matt.
It's okay.
It's
been one of those days.
Out. The whole show, you made it. The hiccups went away. So, gosh, what a number of wonderful questions. So you guys keep writing us your questions. We love to answer these for you guys. We'll keep this video up on social media for you. So anything else, Matt?
I think that's it. Enjoy the spring. If you're starting to wonder why your voice is doing weird things, it's probably because of the allergies. Depending on where you live, on the East Coast here, we're in hardcore allergy season, and I've had just a string of students going, I don't know why, but my voice feels so fill in the blank. And in most cases, it's their allergies acting.
Wake up with post-nasal drip, or it's time to get the neti pot out. If you guys don't know what that is, there's all kinds of remedies to rinse out your nasal passages and get the nebulizers going and everything. So I think we've got a couple shows we've done on those. But guys, have a great week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Take care.